Hey everybody, my name is Harrison Wheeler, and I'm super excited to be here for Figma Config 2022. Now I'm super excited to be talking about the Design MC, creating a safe and inclusive environment for feedback. Now before we get started, some of you may be asking me, why feedback? Well, I think the answer is quite simple. It plays a vital role in how we can deliver innovative solutions and support growth and transformation. What's in it for the other side is improvement for all of us. So I'm going to give you all a little brief introduction about myself. I've been a manager across enterprise design teams for nearly 10 years. I have no idea where the time went, but alas, here we are. One of the consistent things throughout my career managing teams is that there has always been a distributed component to the way that we work. Whether it be with my design team being distributed across 4 time zones, our engineering team being in Poland, time has always played some component into how we work. And really, across my team today, we're across 4 different time zones. And so that presents a number of challenges as we start to talk about the way that we work. Most importantly, about the way that we scale. We're growing real fast, and we need to make sure that our processes are keeping up with it. Now, I was tasked with really kind of 2 challenges when we moved into this world of remote work and now moving into hybrid. The first challenge was, how do we maintain a strong design culture at scale? The second challenge was, how do we accelerate the speed of feedback and response? Now, while remote working has been as productive as ever, the advances in hardware haven't so much. And as we move into hybrid working environments, it's really starting to show. I'm going to give you a few numbers, and this was from LinkedIn's Workforce Confidence Survey back in January 2022. And it showed that there was really a 50-50 split in terms of people that are working in an office and people that are in some combination of working remote or working in a hybrid environment. So in short, hybrid work is here to stay. And really, there's like 2 big things, I think, observations that I've had when working with a team. And by the way, I don't think any of these things are going to be remotely new to any of you all that are tuning in. But one thing that I do want to showcase is really when we were all in office pre-pandemic, really hardware was a lot of the way that we worked, right? Getting in front of virtual conference hardware, logging into Zoom or whatever, Blue Jeans, whatever software that you're using. But as we started moving into full remote work, we saw a lot of progress and innovation happening in the tools that we use. As a matter of fact, during this period, we've seen more than 20% jump in terms of new businesses from entrepreneurs in the sector of technology. And so let me take you through some of the examples of some of the pains that we're having, right? Now, as we start talking about all these new tools, how do we keep up with them, right? Whenever there's a challenge, you know there was a tool on the market. And here we are today where there are hundreds of tools to choose from. And maybe in your workflow, you're working with 5, 10, 15, in some cases even 20. And so being spread across tools can be a pain because now you have to sync all of that information. I know we've all experienced Zoom fatigue, and long Slack threads have been a thing that has been so more prevalent than ever. And if you're not there at the moment that it happens, good luck scrolling up those hundreds of threads in a Zoom conversation. Oh yeah, in that meeting that you had yesterday, hopefully somebody took notes. If not, well, good luck. Now, when it comes to communication, here's some other examples of what's been a pain, right? Signals like raised hands are lost. We all love that Zoom feature when you're able to raise a hand, but when you're in an office, that's not quite there anymore. On top of that, high fidelity 4K cameras that really kind of let our faces shine in high fidelity, that's not the case anymore. And people look different in real life. So now you're not really too sure who's on the other side of the chat. And when it comes to shared documents, well, if you're not in front of a computer or if you're in an office again, you may not understand what's being shared. And so really a way to mitigate a lot of this, in my opinion, is really a focus on facilitation. And it takes a little prep for all of us to get comfortable with it. But I really do believe that this is a strong trait that every designer needs to be working on moving forward. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of story. About 12 years ago, I was a concert promoter, and I had the opportunity of bringing in concerts and acts from all over the country into a small town in Iowa. Now, one of the things that I realized that it was one of my first experiences actually building experience, right? Whether it come from the marketing website to get people to buy tickets, to understanding how people could check into an event, how about the experience for people attending the event, the artist, and of course, the production of the show. Now, one of the things that I started to realize is that these artists had a trait that was very similar called an MC. And an MC and a facilitator are very closely tied together. And this really, for me, I realized that this is one of the things that can help create a healthy design culture. Now, while we're not crowd surfing into the crowd, there's really kind of 4 traits that tend to stand out, right? Number 1, being an active listener, being a cheerleader, hyping up the crowd, telling a story around maybe how that song or design got produced, and the 4th piece, being a facilitator. So these traits are important for all designers as they are the basis of a healthy design culture. I want to iterate that again. And every designer on my team has an opportunity to be an MC. You have an opportunity to lead. And hopefully for you all listening, you will also have that opportunity to be an MC in your organization. But I will say this, as we've started moving into the hybrid working environment and specifically remote, one of the things that's been very, very prevalent is the fact that everyone has so many different things going on. You may be living with a significant other, you may have a pet, you may have a child, you may be working remotely. And so when there's new things that are starting to be implemented, you may not necessarily have the time to just figure it out. And so this is really going to be a lesson in terms of change management. And with anything that's change management oriented, you want to make sure that there are clear definitions so people understand and are aligned with the next steps and how they can adopt and most importantly, see success. One of the things that I love to think about and that I talk to my team in terms of really framing what feedback is that feedback is an opportunity that you're optimizing for an outcome. And on the other side of that outcome, it can be success, it can help you unlock something, or you can learn something. And so when it comes to our design rituals, we really kind of think of these things in 3 different ways in terms of how we have our formats. The first is in the form of a review, the second is in the form of a generative session, and the third is in terms of an FYI. Now, when we think about review, it's the traditional critique in a sense. You come to the design review and you're able to walk through your work. We really try to make sure that the design team is prioritizing the screens that are the most relevant that they're looking to get actionable steps out of. Now, when it comes to the other 2, one of the things that we started noticing is that people thought that they had to be prepared and things had to be in a high fidelity to present in the review. And so these other 2 opportunities allow us to be more creative and sort of take the pressure off. And so with the generative session, if you're ever stuck on the problem, you can lean on your team to really help you drive new ideas. And when it comes to the FYI, maybe it's early in the process and you don't have a foundational understanding of the problem, or maybe later in the process, you want to review what the success has looked like of something that you've developed. Now, one of the things that I love about creating these definitions is that now we can start to apply them to our design process. And so what you see here is the double diamond. It's a very common design process framework that many organizations and teams are using. And so one of the things that you can realize here is that now you can see where maybe an FYI can work, or a generative session can work, or maybe a design review can work. We're starting to see that there's a ton of opportunity and flexibility to try and test things. Now, we don't have it perfect, but it really gives us more of an affordance to be able to try new things and for the designers to really experiment and see what works for them and the stakeholders in the room. So now that we've sort of defined the different types of feedback channels, now let's look at our channels in terms of how we give and receive that. And there's really two here. It's real-time and asynchronous. And real-time is an opportunity where everyone can actually take the time to meet. And so this may look like everyone being in an office, or perhaps everyone can be on the same Zoom call at the same time. In the case of asynchronous, perhaps maybe everyone cannot be on at the same time. And so you need that flexibility because maybe there's a feedback cycle that you need to have at the last minute. At least we're providing the flexibility to be able to get those types of things. And so one of the ways that this shows up, and I want to really emphasize, is that these different channels allow you to understand where to share this information. One of the things that we've done as a team is that we've started a design review Slack channel. And as I mentioned before, when it comes to asynchronous review sessions, preparation is extremely important. The reason being is that you want to make sure that people understand the context of the problem that you're trying to solve. And later on, we'll have an opportunity to really sort of see how these might manifest itself in terms of the templates that we use. Although feedback format types can be presented across both types of channels, the flexibility is what really matters here, is because we're able to really improvise and take really a lot of the heat off of it. We know that this can be very vulnerable to share your work. And so one of the things that we've done is provided a number of different channels for designers to really connect. So this is what I refer to in this presentation, our design rituals. And we really have 4 things during the week that we get together and come together as a team to start discussing design decisions or ideas. And that really starts off with our weekly design stand-up. And I love this because this is an opportunity for our team to really connect with each other despite where they're located in the world. The next piece is our cross-functional design jam. And in this case, we may have partners that are in data science, product marketing, engineering, and the product team. And this is an opportunity for them to understand design in the lens of product strategy. And the third piece, we have our traditional design review. And so this is where we're really able to experiment as a team and really grow together and try new things. Now, this fourth piece is our product strategy review. We haven't quite implemented it at this level yet, but it's something that we're really trying to do. And so just know that in the same way that I'm presenting this, there's a ton of flexibility here, and it might work in your organization. So, Harrison, right? You've been giving us the context as to why, the bit of the background. Let's get to the meat of it. Like, what does this look like? Well, I'm going to give you an idea of how this looks like, right? And here's an example of FigJam, and this is our instance. Now, I'm going to be speaking in terms of FigJam, but do whatever works for you. This can work in something like Google Slides, it may work in Miro, it may work in PowerPoint. But one of the things here is that you need to work with the tools that your company has, because ultimately, if your partners that are participating don't have access, it may be a lot of preparation without success. So let's dive in. So in terms of this critique workspace, one of the things that you see here is that we've set out directions and we have high-level questions for the designer that's presenting to ask before presenting. In the generative workspace, this allows for a lot more flexibility. And so one of the things that I would encourage you to do is set a prompt or a how might we statement. But the idea here is that you're providing a space for multiple participants to really contribute ideas. For this example, you might use this for a Crazy Eights exercise. And on the third piece, this is really built for an FYI. And so let's say you're delivering a presentation, and there may not necessarily be any actionable feedback to move on right now. You can provide the space for questions that people can start to have and ideas that people can have as well. That's the extent that we'll dive into it on this. But I provided this as a template that anyone in the Figma community can download. So be sure to give me a follow on Figma today, or you can click on the Figma link to get that download link today. Now, how do we build a safe and inclusive environment? This is the second half of the equation. And hopefully being that DJ has really started to resonate with you all. We really want to practice being strong facilitators. And these are really important soft skills that you'll need to really be a strong strategic partner. So when we start thinking about building that safe and inclusive environment, there's really three things that are important for any MC or any facilitator to keep top of mind. And it's protecting the time, enforcing rules of engagement, and reading the room. When we start thinking about protecting the time, time is the basis for everything. Time is needed to plan for foundational research. Time is needed to iterate on different designs. And of course, design is needed to get great feedback. And so we want to make sure that you're facilitating and allowing for the time for this to really be an impactful set of work and objectives that you're trying to achieve. So for example, you want to make sure that the presenter has enough time to provide the context. The questions and answers that we provided on that template can help really streamline that process, but it's also going to be important that you're laser focused on the exact information that you're trying to get back, but also making sure that people have enough time to deliver feedback as well. One of the things that this will also lead to is enforcing rules of engagement. And this is probably one of the most difficult things to do. And I know all my introverts out there might cringe a little bit, but sometimes you just got to put your foot down, right? So the more important part about the rules of engagement is that you want to make sure that your team has a set of rules that they can align with for your design reviews. This is really the source of truth, and it's going to make it a lot easier for anybody that's facilitating these types of sessions. And so what does that look like? Well, you may want to make sure that no one is on their cell phone, or perhaps no one is browsing during a presentation process. And the reason being is that if you were presenting, you would want people's full attention as well. The next piece is making sure people don't speak over each other, right? If we are enforcing the time, we might say, hey, you know what? Everyone has an opportunity for about 3 minutes to be able to share their ideas. And so you want to make sure that things are moving forward and respectful in that manner. There's so many more things that you can do with this, but think of this as the code of conduct. And on the last piece, reading the room. We want to make sure that we're observing everything that's happening around us. The reason being is, as I mentioned in the earlier slide, there's a lot of body language that we've got to think about. There are people in other rooms. And so you want to make sure that people are engaged and not necessarily disconnected. And so that may show up in a way where you need to also, for the presenter, ask clarifying questions. So this plays a really important role to make sure that things are going. Let's also remember that we are looking out for our other designers, because we all know that on the other end is success for all of us. So let's go through some high-level takeaways of what I discussed today. Number one, the power of facilitation is something that we can all unlock. Hopefully, these are some extremely tangible things that you can implement in your design organization tomorrow. It will take practice. You're not going to be perfect, but over time, you'll start to see buy-in. Number two, clear definitions allow for expectations for the type of feedback that you're looking to receive. Let's remember, anytime that we are walking into any sort of review process, there's an outcome on the other side that we're looking to achieve. So make sure that you're clear in that. And number three, preparation is everything. Take a little bit of time to make sure that you're prepping, because again, time is of the essence, and this is a very valuable time that you want to make sure that you're making the most of. Now, some of you all may be asking, how has this changed the way that we work? Well, here are three high-level things here, right? One of the things that we really missed about being in an office was the opportunity to really pin up design ideas and whiteboard. That's been really difficult. And so when we start using things like stickies and things like FigJam, it's created more contextual, tactile documentation. Now it's not physical, but we're able to deliver things in context. Number two, with this practice, we've seen improved articulation of design decisions. As with any sort of feedback, you want to get the proper feedback on the experience and understanding what the goals are and having a clear outcome. And so when you start having those objectives, people are getting right to the point. And so this can really be beneficial in that regard. And number three, when we talk about change management, the team overall was receptive and really have bought into it. And so this is something that they're excited about, and we're looking at also really innovating over time. So looking forward, well, number one, we talk about the design MC as a role. But as I mentioned before and I showcased, are different design rituals. And so one of the things that we're looking at working with is making the MC really be able to facilitate all of those rituals. It's a really great opportunity to improve on those soft skills and develop leadership skills as well. Number two, scaling it to a broader set of teams. While our team specifically is really laser focused on this, it may not necessarily be the case with other teams. Some design feedback is still being delivered in Google Docs, which can be really hard to track. And this leads me to the last piece. It's creating scalable onboarding. And one of the things about onboarding that we've been talking about is that how can we get people to really adopt this as they're starting to work in our organization as new employees. So there's a lot more work there to go, but most importantly, I'm looking forward to hearing from you. As I mentioned before, feel free to download the design template and give me a shout out on Twitter and LinkedIn. But I want to close with this one quote. And it goes, "Not all rituals are created equal. Some solve bigger problems, others address everyday issues. Rituals must be human-centered and authentic. They must create excitement, not resistance." And it's that last line that I really want to leave you with. Designing is fun, and we want to make sure that we're building that back. A lot of the challenges that we've had have created a lot of pain, but I think with this work that we're trying to do, we can really bring back the essence and flexibility to really grow together. So that's it for my presentation today. Again, my name is Harrison Wheeler. Feel free to connect with me on Instagram at Technically Speaking HW and on Twitter at HMWheely. And don't forget to subscribe to my podcast, Technically Speaking. Thank you.